Hello and welcome to this episode of The Diary of a Lawyer. I just want to briefly talk about the Zimbabwean election, which has been going on for an extended for another period due to major problems associated with the election. And since then, the vote observers have stated that they found that the election fell short of standards. The observers on Friday said Zimbabwe's presidential and legislative actions failed to conform to regional and international standards, placing in doubt the credibility of the 10th vote. The people went to polls on Wednesday and Thursday in polling that was reportedly marred by delays, and the vote took place against a backdrop of discontent at Zimbabwe's economic crisis. Now, regional and international observers listed concerns over the caning of opposition rallies, denial of accreditation to several foreign media, missing voter names from the roll at their polling station, what they termed as biased state media and voter intimidation. And I think it was reported that some of the observers were arrested a day or so ago among the issues that sort of marred the election. The head of the European Union Observer Mission, Fabio Massimo Castelado, say the election fell, quote-unquote, fell short of many regional and international standards. Violence and intimidation resulted ultimately in a climate of fear, he said. Commonwealth Observer Mission Chair Amina Mohammed of Kenya said overall the voting process was well conducted and peaceful, quote-unquote, but a number of significant issues impacted on the election's credibility and transparency, quote-unquote. Now, some aspects of the election fell short of the requirements of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. She went on to say the Electoral Act and the SCDA principles and guidelines governing democratic election are mentioned as stated by the head of the regional bloc's delegation, Nevas Mumba, who is a former Zambian vice president. So that's a statement from, just to be clear, from the SADC, which is SADC, the Southern Bloc of African nations, which, I repeat, says that some of the aspects of the election fell short of the requirements of the constitutions of Zimbabwe, the Electoral Act, and the SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic elections, according to a statement attributed to Nevas Mumba, who is a former Zambian vice president. Now, this is obviously by general standards in that region. It was a rare rebuke from the 16-nation Southern African Development Community, whose observers usually endorse polls in the member countries. The election is being watched across Southern Africa as a test of support for the 80-year-old President Emerson Mnangagwa's ZANU-PF party, whose 43-year rule has been battered by a moribund economy and charges of authoritarianism. Voting was forced to stretch into unprecedented second day over delays in printing of ballot papers in some key districts, including the opposition stronghold Harare. The largest opposition, Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC, which poses the biggest challenge to Mnangagwa's and had more than 100 of its campaign meetings banned, stated that the election process was fundamentally flawed. quote unquote. And the CCC is led by Nelson Chamisa. Now, less than a quarter of polling stations in Harare, an opposition stronghold, opened on time on Wednesday, according to reports, which was the first day of voting. The problems forced Mnangagwa, who was seeking a second time, to issue a late-night directive extending the vote by another day. Zimbabwe Electoral Commission Deputy Chairman Rodney Kiwa told AFP on Thursday the authorities were still confident of announcing the results before Tuesday deadline. Now, the CCC leader, Nelson Chamisa, slammed the delays as, quote, a clear case of voter suppression, a classic case of Stone Age rigging, quote unquote. Chamisa, 45, is the main challenger to Mnangagwa, who is 80, who came to power after a coup that deposed late ruler Robert Mugabe in 2017. In the meantime, 41 local monitors were arrested late at night on election day and had their computers and mobile phones confiscated by police, who alleged the equipment was used to unlawfully tabulate results, quote unquote, from polling stations, describing the activity as subversive and criminal, quote unquote. The monitors, mostly women and men in their 20s and early 30s, and who work for local pro-democracy NGOs, arrived Friday at Harare Court crammed into the back of an open white truck to appear before a magistrate. As they waited in the sun, some waved and held back tears as they were greeted by a small group of family and friends. Several sported blue caps or green t-shirts bearing the words "Election Observers." The arrest of 41 observers adds to the grave concerns, said the EU polls observer chief. He went on to say that at this stage, it's all pointing towards difficulties in the election. But I think one of the most poignant statements was by Kaleboa Mafunye, who is an African Studies professor at the University of South Africa, in an online debate organized by the South Africa-based Southern African Liaison Office, who say that at this stage, it's all pointing towards a disputed election. Not the first time then in the country's post-colonial liberation that brought Robert Mugabe and his ZANU-PF in power in 1980. And so those are sort of the reports coming from Zimbabwe. We shall be watching developments, but it appears that according to foreign observers, whether it's Commonwealth, SADC, EU and local, including opposition, they don't consider that the elections were consistent or conform to local and international standards. And that's where we shall leave it on this episode of the Diary of a Lawyer. Thanks for listening, and we shall speak again. Thank you. Bye.